So, if I was really doing a spiritual travel in the old world, I realized this that actually I needed to go to Israel. I mean, the whole point here, if I'm doing a spiritual journey and I've touched every center, the India, Muslim, Buddha, then I need to do Jesus too. Although I didn't actually do Jesus. Although I did go to Jerusalem. I did. I went to all the places in Jerusalem. But I lived on a kibbutz on Mivol Chama, which is above the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret. And every morning you'd get out, you would open your door, and you'd see 2,000 feet down this beautiful Sea of Galilee. It was really wonderful. And I loved to live in the kibbutz. And I had worked in cows in Arkansas, and so I worked in cows in Israel. And so it was all good. And but it was time to go home. So I'm at the airport in Israel, in Tel Aviv, and I'm crying uncontrollably because I don't want to go back. I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. I don't want to leave. I don't want to, and cry. And it's really embarrassing. And I'm just my head is sort of trying to, in the corner so no one can see me crying, But I had a book with me by Ursula Le Guin, and I thought I would use the book fairy, which is you just ask the book a question and open it, and whatever your eye falls on is the answer. So I did, help, and I opened the book. And in this book, each chapter had a little saying at the top in bold. And it said, "To travel is to return." And I remembered all those people who had been on the road for 5 years. They were jaded. They had no love left, no hope left somehow. And so when I read that, "To travel is to return," I started giggling. I was fine. And so what happened was I had to go see, the reason I went back is my dad was going to Rochester. He was getting a hip replacement or whatever, and I was supposed to be there. So I got there. And I was telling him about my trip. And about how I had met this strange teacher who had told me that if a woman, in order for a man to be perfectly normal and have all his systems going, all he had to do was have an ejaculation every 2 weeks or so. Because then all the little buttons that came with his body would be turned on and off, and they would be functioning normally. For a woman to be functioning normally and have all her buttons turned off, she had to have a child. And if she didn't have a child, she'd be turned into a witch, was what she said. Well, I didn't want to be a witch. And I told my father this story, and he sort of looked at me and said, "Have you ever tried to have a baby?" And I said, "Yeah, we did when I was on the farm, and I never could get pregnant." And he goes, "Well, you're at the Mayo Clinic. Let's go have you tested." So they, everything seemed normal, except maybe my fallopian tubes were maybe compromised. So they put dye up there, to see if they're open. And I got to see that they weren't. And then that's why. And I was very upset. I was crying, cry. I was crying, really weeping, because it was like this was something that would be denied me as a woman living on Earth. And someone must have told somebody, Because when I went down the hallway to the doctor's office, the people were looking, you know. They had heard. They wanted to see what she, oh, it's awful. And then when I got to the doctor's office, he said, I'll give you a couple minutes, you know, to gather yourself. And so he left, and so there were some magazines there on the table, and I did a book fairy with them too, you know, maybe they will help me. And every one, when I opened them, it was like a giraffe and her babies, a bear and her babies, you know. And so the doctor more or less made me say, he didn't say, he made me say, yes, I'm 35. Yes, I don't have a husband. Yes, it would cost thousands of dollars to open so I could have a child. Yes, I would probably be childless. And so I left his office, and I sort of stumbled into the, you know, I spent a lot of time on my head in the corner, so no one could see me crying, you know. And I get downstairs and I get outside, you know, trying to, anybody could see. And there's this little park over there. I think, oh, okay, I'll go over there. And I get to the park, and I'm walking around, and I'm following the rule I have followed everywhere, which is follow the path of least resistance. In other words, if you feel like going this way, go. So it was like, okay, go. And then, okay, go. Turn right. Okay. And then there was, go sit on that bench. And so I did. And I sat down. And it was, look to your right. Which I did. Piece of paper. And I just felt like that, you know. Oh, God. And I opened it. And it was a butterfly. It was a beautiful monarch butterfly. And it was like the end. A trip to find myself.